At the top of 10 at 10, a mother is facing charges in the grisly death of her 6-year-old son.
We will never have those memories. No more hugs, no more snuggles. They were ripped from us.
This story involves the tragic death of a child and may be very distressing to some viewers. Our intention is to present the facts of this case with care and respect for the victim and their loved ones. Viewers' discretion is advised. It was a day like any other. The county police in Mounds, Minnesota acted on a tip and had just stopped a vehicle for a check. The Chevy Impala was missing a tire, and the passenger glass on the right side was shattered. It seemed like a typical road accident, except that something wasn't quite right. Upon investigation, the police discovered something much darker.
There is no tire there. All right. There's what?
There's blood all over the car. Shotgun shells all over the side.
Yeah. Holy we got a body. Yeah. All right, let's cover it.
There were bullet holes in the back seat. The seat was also covered in what seemed like blood. What started as an ordinary roadside check soon revealed a deep tragedy that was not only heartbreaking, but alarming. It is the story of a gruesome murder that should never have happened. It is dipped in betrayal and reveals what happens when a system that was supposed to protect innocent lives fails. Eli Hart was born in 2016 to Julissa Thaler and Eli Hart. Friends described the young boy as a playful child whose infectious laugh filled the room with energy. Eli was born with a rare genetic disease called Townes-Brocks syndrome. The disease affected his kidneys and his hearing, causing him to wear a hearing aid. Despite his condition, he lived a happy life. But Eli's early years were complicated. His parents' relationship ended poorly, and both found themselves fighting for custody. Tori built a stable home in a nearby town, while Julissa struggled. Julissa Thaler had a dark and unsettling history. After being diagnosed with depression, borderline personality disorder, and long-term substance abuse, she had been in and out of psychiatric care since the young age of 13. Julissa had a drug and alcohol problem and had been in treatment for as long as she could remember. Despite her mental state, Thaler had custody of her son. However, in 2021, social services intervened after reports came in that Eli's cohabitation with Julissa had become unsafe. She didn't have stable housing, and she cycled through jobs. Eli had to be placed in foster care, under a nice couple, where he found a bit of stability. Eli, under foster care, would go for weekend fishing trips with his biological father, Eli Hart, and they'd bond together with Tori's wife, Josie. This didn't sit well with Thaler, and she did everything she could to stop these visits. Eli's foster mom, Nikita Kronberg, complained of being frequently watched by Thaler from outside their home. When confronted about her presence, Thaler would drive away, saying nothing. By May 2022, Eli Hart petitioned the court for full custody. Tori complained many times to the court about Julissa's mental issues and consistent drug use, but the court ignored his appeals. Despite concerns raised by child protection workers, a judge ruled that Eli could be returned to his mother's care with supervision in place. This decision would later face intense scrutiny. On May 19, 2022, Eli went to school like every other day. He was picked up by Julissa and her boyfriend, Robert Pickeranen. Eli was excited for summer break. Little did he know that this would be his last day of school. By the early hours of May 20th, 2022, police deputies arrived at the lakeside turnout. Julissa's Chevy Impala was sitting crooked on the tarred road. The driver's window was open, and there sat Julissa. She looked disheveled and anxious inside the car. Eli was no longer with her. Officers noted signs that something violent must have happened. They asked Julissa to step out of the vehicle and began to ask questions. Julissa defended her bloody back seat, saying that she had been carrying deer meat. Then she blamed her busted tires on an attack. She continued to fidget and complain of the cold, refusing to answer more questions. She insisted on going home rather than waiting in the squad vehicle. Yielding to her complaints, the officers decided to let her go, but insisted that one of the officers drop her off at her home. A few minutes after she left, the officers opened the trunk of her car to find something unexpected: the shell of a shotgun and something bloody wrapped in a bag. Inside the bag was the lifeless body of 6-year-old Eli. Reports showed that he was shot 9 times, indicating that this was premeditated murder. Thaler had taken her son far out where she couldn't draw attention and shot him 9 times in the back seat. A warrant was sent out for her arrest immediately, but before the police could get to her apartment, Thaler and her boyfriend had left with some of her belongings. A search team was stationed at every road, and it wasn't long until they were caught at a traffic stop. Both were taken into custody. Julissa continued to argue that she had no idea what happened to her son, even though there was more than enough evidence to prove otherwise. Julissa had bought a shotgun earlier in 2022 and had gone to the gun range a few times to practice. Within that same period, her Google search history contained implicating and highly sensitive search queries that suggested that she wanted to know how she could get away with murder, as well as claim a reasonable life insurance payout from the murder. Some speculated that she would rather eliminate her child than share custody with a man that she had grown to hate. During interrogations, Julissa repeated, "I would never hurt my son. I want to go to trial." She was unable to meet a $2 million bail and had to be remanded until the first month of 2023. Investigations continued on the case as experts presented numerous pieces of evidence against Julissa Thaler. The blood that was found on her hair on the day she was arrested was reported to be Eli's blood. Her phone data matched every location where the crime took place. In January, trials began, and witnesses were brought to testify. Among the witnesses was a gun shop owner who testified that Julissa had indeed purchased her shotgun from his shop and as many as 40 shotgun rounds just days before Eli was killed. Thaler's heart-wrenching Google searches were presented in court and completely took the fight out of the defense. However, defense argued that on the grounds of maternity, Julissa loved her son and was unable to harm him. Everything changed when Julissa's now former boyfriend took the stand to give his testimony. Robert Pickeranen told the judge that he and Thaler had known each other since high school and became closer because of their love for drugs. He narrated the events of the day of the murder as he had perceived them. On May 19th, Pickeranen had gone with his ex to pick up Eli Hart from school. They had a fun day playing with cats and Xbox. Things became awkward at around 11 p.m. when Eli got a little rowdy and got into a physical struggle with his mom. At that point, Julissa dragged Eli out of the car while Robert fell asleep on the bed. He woke up around 8 a.m. the next day and noticed Julissa was a little rattled. She claimed she had taken Eli to school already and wanted them to leave the house immediately. When he asked what the problem was, she wouldn't say. Robert reported being shocked when they were stopped by the police and taken into custody, claiming he didn't know what was going on. He also admitted that he was aware that Julissa bought a shotgun, but didn't think she could ever use it on her own son. After his testimony, Robert was released without any charge. When it was time for the defense to call on a witness, the defense rested its case without calling forth a single witness. Thaler's defense suggested that she may have been involved in some way, but she didn't do the shooting because what mother would? On February 8, 2023, Julissa was found guilty of first-degree murder and was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Her reaction stunned the court. She used profane statements and maintained that she was innocent. Eli's foster mother, Nikita Kronberg, took to the stands to read a victim impact statement. She and her husband had served as a stabilizing factor for Eli through the days when both parents were unavailable. She provided love, care, and a happy home to a 6-year-old boy whose biological parents were found unfit by the court. Eli's mother, Josie, also lent her voice, saying that Thaler should have handed Eli over to his father rather than take his life. As the family sought healing from the misfortune, they started a foundation in honor of Eli Hart, raising money to fund a playground that will be located at Seaside, keeping Eli's memory alive. Eli was the victim of a brutal murder that could have been avoided. His tragic death exposes how a system designed to protect him ended up pushing him into the hands of a cold predator disguised as a parent.